An arrest is made into 4 arsons that occurred nearly 3 years ago in the Boston area. 2 of the 4 targeted the Chabad Center for Jewish Life in Arlington. This case began in Arlington and has now reached as far as Sweden. ACMi News has the very latest, including an exclusive interview with Rabbi Avi Bukiet in Arlington. Some potential changes to polling places for this year's upcoming town election were bandied about at a recent select board meeting, but there has yet to be a final decision on this matter, and we'll tell you why. Celebrating Black History Month, among the banners adorning Mass Ave this month, Malcolm X. We take a look at the extraordinary life of this man who discovered himself as he was trying to eradicate blatant racism around the globe. And how did the Spy Ponders do in the town-wide world of sports? Was it the thrill of victory or the agony of, well, you know the rest. ACMi News starts right now.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to, giving you stories that count from people who care, dedicated, determined, dependable. This is ACMi News.
The U.S. Justice Department announced this week that an indictment was unsealed, charging a Massachusetts man of tampering with an investigation into 4 arsons in the Boston area nearly 3 years ago. Hello, I'm Drew Weisberg.
And I'm Katie Chang. Thanks for joining us. Those arsons targeted Jewish-related institutions, including the Chabad Center for Jewish Life in Arlington. That center was the target of 2 of the 4 fires just days apart in May of 2019. This nearly 3-year-old case broke wide open this week, and ACMi News Director Jeff Barnes says it's a case that involved an investigation by Arlington police. An investigation which led authorities all the way to the suburbs of Stockholm, Sweden.
35-year-old Alexander Giannakakis, formerly of Quincy, was arrested by Swedish officials in a suburb of Stockholm at the request of the U.S. Justice Department. He was serving as a security contractor at the U.S. Embassy in Sweden and was arrested on a federal indictment filed in the city of Boston, which accused him of tampering with evidence in an anti-Semitic arson probe which focused on his younger brother. Now, that brother died in September of 2020, according to authorities. Giannakakis was indicted by a federal grand jury in Boston in connection with false statements in a case which involves several charges, including domestic terrorism and concealing records in a federal investigation. According to that indictment, in February 2020, Giannakakis' younger brother became a prime suspect in an arson investigation into 4 fires that were set at Jewish-related institutions in the Boston community. The first came on May the 11th, 2019, right here at the Center for Jewish Life in Arlington. The second, same location, on May the 16th, just a few days later. The third at a Chabad Center in Needham, and the fourth on the evening of May 26th at a Jewish-affiliated business in Chelsea. The younger brother, allegedly seen here, caught on a security camera in May of 2019, was hospitalized and in a coma since November 2019 and remained in a coma until his death. Investigators say in March of 2020, Giannakakis allegedly confiscated some of his younger brother's electronic devices and also removed items belonging to his younger brother that were relevant to the investigation, reportedly including a T-shirt with a swastika on it, a notebook containing at least 1 swastika, and a backpack containing a bottle of cyanide. And he took them to Sweden. The indictment alleges Giannakakis has not returned stateside since. Now, this week I spoke to Rabbi Avi Bukiet from the Center for Jewish Life in Arlington about this latest development in a case that has been ongoing for nearly 3 years.
The news that broke yesterday was right away was an immediate sense of relief for myself, my family, and my community in assuring that those who need to be brought before justice will come forward.
I remember when we covered the story nearly 3 years ago, there was a surveillance camera next to your center that got a picture of what the Justice Department is saying was the suspect. Now, that is the brother who passed away, correct?
Correct. He passed on due to succumbing to his injuries from a suicide attempt.
You have to admire the tenacity, I would imagine, of the Arlington police, other law enforcement agencies at home and abroad, and also the community that really came together after this happened nearly 3 years ago.
Yeah, Jeff, this was an extremely traumatic event that happened that happened personally and communally, and everyone came together, as you recall, and everybody came in support and with love, and we were patient, and through it all, we were told that they are serious about this investigation. They are serious about what this was, and it was an anti-Semitic event. It was a domestic terrorist attack, and they said they're going to go to the ends of the earth to make sure that justice is served, and they truly did that. So my hats are off to them, and I appreciate all of the different groups of law enforcement that came together to make this happen.
Gianna Cases faces a litany of charges, including covering up the material fact in a matter involving domestic terrorism and concealing records in a federal investigation. Each charge provides for sentences of up to 8 years behind bars and $250,000 in fines. Among those law enforcement departments assisting Arlington's police force, Swedish law enforcement authorities, the Justice Department Office of International Affairs, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Boston Joint Terrorism Task Force. The U.S. is now planning to seek Gianna Cases' extradition to face charges in the city of Boston. For ACMi News, I'm Jeff Barnes.
Effective immediately, Arlington's Board of Health has lifted the town's indoor mask mandate. This decision came after the board's February 16th meeting. Board members say there have been recent reductions in transmission rates, a considerable uptick in vaccination status, and wider availability of testing. Lifting the mandate comes in the wake of the state rescinding its mask mandate on February 15th. You'll recall that advisory was issued last year. Even though the town mandate has been lifted, Arlington businesses can choose whether to require use of masks in their establishment. Health officials stress individuals who are not fully vaccinated should continue to wear a face covering or mask to help prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Arlington school leaders say clearly this pandemic has taken an emotional toll on students, and they have the numbers to back that up. Preliminary numbers mentioned in a recent school committee meeting indicate that close to 60% of fourth graders have at least moderate psychological problems, while other numbers show that nearly 40% of 11th graders have suffered ill effects from this prolonged pandemic. Sarah Bird, the director of school counseling and social emotional learning, says overall the current need for mental health assistance is up to 3 times greater than it was in the months leading up to the COVID crisis. According to your Arlington, school officials are now responding with telephone outreach measures to parents and enhancing training for teachers to respond to students' needs during this crisis.
What we do know is that students who have stronger grasp on self-management skills, relationship skills, self-awareness skills are able to manage stressful situations and conflicts and chronic stress, such as pandemics and adolescence and so on. They're able to manage those a lot more deftly when they have those skills, when they have people they can turn to, when they can ask for help and assistance. When students don't have those skills, or young people, when any people don't have those skills, the stressful situations, the difficult encounters and scenarios tend to be having a bit more of an impact on them. And what we do know is that these skills build them up as protective factors. And we want to increase the protective factors. We really don't have much of an input or a say on risk factors, but we can always lift up the protective factors that we're offering students.
Arlington Public Schools recently received $350,000 from the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And among other measures, school leaders plan to spend that money to expand behavioral therapy for students.
The Select Board has decided on the polling changes it prefers, but the February 7th vote was only preliminary. This as the April town election draws ever closer. You may recall last month, the Select Board unanimously voted on the Election Modernization Committee's latest report, which recommended certain changes to polling locations. Among the proposed changes, using the Gibbs School and Arlington High School as new locations, an idea supported by School Superintendent Elizabeth Homan. At the Select Board's February 7th meeting, Town Clerk Julie Brazil said before the board can take a final vote on the polling locations, she has some work to do.
I'll need to do a very detailed site study to evaluate accessibility and send in the report and pictures to the elections division for any new space that we are interested in using. And then when that has been okayed, we will we may need to take a final vote. And prior to that, they seem to be asking for a report, just a statement from the board indicating that they've looked at it and any change that we're making to a current location wouldn't have a disparate adverse impact on access to the polls on the basis of race, national origin, disability, income, or age.
Some board members expressed concern over using Arlington High School as a new polling location, saying because of the massive construction project underway there, it'd be too soon to use that location this year. A final vote on the new polling locations is expected in the next few weeks.
Permanently closed. You'll find those words on the website of the Sabzi restaurant at 352 Mass Ave. The quaint eatery that served meals like kebabs and Persian shallot dip has closed its doors for good, among the latest Arlington businesses to succumb to the COVID crisis. If you call the restaurant's phone number, this is the message you'll hear.
Thank you for calling Sabzi. We are very sad to let you know after more than 10 wonderful years in business, we had to make the difficult decision to end our run. The size of our little restaurant just could not adequately sustain itself given the many pandemic hurdles and the ongoing staffing shortages. It has been a true privilege to serve this community. We have made many good friends and will forever treasure this experience. Much love, Sabzi. Thank you.
Sabzi Restaurant first opened its doors in 2012.
14 banners celebrating Black History Month are on display throughout town, including Broadway Square and the Heights, during this month of February. These are just some of the banners adorning Mass Ave as the town of Arlington celebrates Black History Month 2022. You'll be seeing banners from previous years along with some new designs on light poles in East Arlington, Arlington Center, and the Heights, according to town leaders. Malcolm X is one banner that may look familiar to you. This charismatic civil rights activist would find himself in the maelstrom of blatant racism that engulfed the turbulent and often violent 1950s and 60s. Here's ACMi News Director Jeff Barnd with a look at the life of Malcolm X and how he paved the way for inclusion, equity, and civil rights at a time when these causes would generally fall on deaf ears.
I don't advocate any kind of hate.
There's a lot of talk that sounds very much like it.
No, I think that the guilt complex of the American white man is so profound until when you begin to analyze the real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate.
Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little in Omaha, Nebraska on May 19, 1925. He would eventually drop the so-called slave name Little and adopt the initial X, which in his words represented an unknown. Malcolm's defiant behavior towards authority took root in his early life. Still, he was an outstanding student and was very popular with his schoolmates. During World War II, Malcolm got a job on the railroad, a job that would eventually take him to New York City. He then moved to Harlem, then moved to Boston, where his street sense and charisma got him into trouble. He formed a burglary ring, was soon caught, and sentenced to hard time behind bars. It was during this time Malcolm underwent a major transformation. He learned the value of a quality education and began to read and study, even taking correspondence courses in Latin. It was also during this time that Malcolm X became interested in the Nation of Islam, a religion founded by Elijah Muhammad during the Great Depression. The teachings of Elijah Muhammad stimulated Malcolm's interest in history, particularly in the history of black people worldwide. He found after studying history that there was compelling evidence of global white supremacy. Malcolm then joined the Nation of Islam and adopted the name by which he was to become famous, Malcolm X.
Are you still a Muslim yourself?
Oh, yes. I'm a Muslim. I believe in the religion of Islam, which believes in brotherhood, complete brotherhood of all people. But at the same time that I believe in this brotherhood, I don't believe enforcing my desire for brotherhood upon those who aren't willing to accept it.
Of course, I think the Christians would say that they also believed in brotherhood. What did you say to that?
I'd say they believe in it, but don't practice it.
Well, that'd be a pretty good answer.
In the years between 1953 and 1963, the Nation of Islam grew from a small number of storefront temples to a large, organized, vocal national movement dedicated to black separatism, and Malcolm became its best known and most volatile spokesperson.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
But an eventual rift between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad began to grow, and it finally resulted in Malcolm's being silenced, then suspended from the Nation of Islam. Soon, his newfound feeling of independence, coupled with his awareness of his popularity with Black America, led him to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, the holy city of Islam. Malcolm X began to realize that the whiteness he stood against was not so much a matter of color, as the Nation Islam had taught, but a matter of attitude and behavior. Being white did not make a man evil. Being a white American, however, generally did imply certain patterns of behavior and certain attitudes about race. Malcolm X began to believe that the only way America could avert racial disaster was to alter its social makeup. His popularity grew even larger, which unfortunately would expose him to several death threats worldwide, mostly from far-right radicals. On Sunday, February the 21st, 1965, as Malcolm X began to speak to an audience in Harlem, a fight broke out among the crowd. During the ensuing confusion, 3 gunmen approached the stage and shot him down. Malcolm X died instantly. He was only 39 years old.
We feel that the problem, number one, of the black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts of the world, and even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations because of violation of human rights. We believe that our problem is one not of violation of civil rights, but a violation of human rights. Not only are we denied the right to be a citizen in the United States, we're denied the right to be a human being.
Whose lives matter? Black lives matter. Whose lives matter? Black lives matter. No peace. No peace. No peace.
The tragic death of Malcolm X did nothing to destroy his influence. Through the autobiography of Malcolm X, published after his death, he has reached a much wider and more sympathetic audience than he ever had during his lifetime. It is a legacy that has now become intergenerational, and the fight for equality, civil rights, inclusion, and the oneness of humankind, traits that Malcolm X gave his life for, is a battle still being waged well into the 21st century.
This is what democracy looks like. 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 This is what democracy looks like.
Today, hundreds of streets and schools nationwide have been renamed to honor Malcolm X.
When Arlington High School students returned from February vacation on Monday the 28th, they will get their first taste of the future as they begin classes in the science and math wing of the brand new high school. ACMi's youth production group at AHS recently invited Superintendent Elizabeth Homan into Studio B for an interview with the UView crew. Host Jasper Zelmer asked the superintendent for her thoughts on this first move into the new building.
I am so excited about this. Are you all excited to move into the new building?
I'm so excited. It's gonna be great.
Have you had a chance to see it yet?
I have not, but I'm really hoping that I can't wait.
It's beautiful. So I am very much looking forward to the new wing opening. Each phase is going to be its own sort of exciting version of this process. But it will be really nice to have all students having access to that new wing. The wonderful thing about it being the STEAM wing is that every student has a science or a math course. And so everybody's going to have some level of access to that new space. I'm really looking forward to the auditorium opening and for us being able to have fall plays and musicals and other performances there. And I'm really looking forward to having the discourse lab available too. I think that's going to be an exciting new space, the likes of which we really don't have in the older building. So, you know, it's going to be complex. The next phase of the project involves wiping out the courtyard, right? Because they'll be doing all of the demolition for Column House, and we'll sort of be operating in a big U around a construction zone. So the next phase of the project is definitely the most complex. It has the most moving parts, and that part starts in just about a month now.
Yeah, during February break.
Yeah, and it will be going on for about the next 18 months. And I think after that, most of the construction will be behind us, and we'll be mostly moved into some of the new wings with a few classes still in the old wing. And I'm really looking forward to all aspects of it. It's going to be a really exciting new space. It's going to be a hub for the community. I see it as a resource for the community, and a really big resource for students, and it's going to be pretty fantastic.
Jasper also took the opportunity to ask Dr. Homan about her educational philosophy.
I'm a bit of a dreamer, and I'm a hopeless optimist, and I like to imagine things in the most ideal way that they could be. So my philosophy is that, first of all, that students learn most when they get to see the connections between things, across disciplines, between ideas, and that we're motivated when we're challenged. So engagement equals being really challenged by the work in front of you and being really curious about the world. And so I think the best education is one that inspires that curiosity, that welcomes it into the classroom, that is ready for hard questions to get asked, even when those hard questions may cause some uncomfortable conversation. And so I think the best education is one that allows the space for that, for students to take risks, to try on new things, to try on new identities and ideas and perspectives. And that requires a lot of trust and a lot of relationship building, and some boundaries and parameters and high expectations that, you know, it can be hard to establish in a school. So those are some of the things that ground me. I'm really interested in approaches to education that inspire deeper learning and an opportunity for students to spend extensive periods of time on things that they've chosen to pursue. So those are a couple other things that guide my philosophy.
As you can see, it was a lively, thoroughly engaging conversation, and Dr. Homan herself tweeted shortly after to say how impressed she was by the UView group and the production overall. You can find the entire interview on the UView YouTube page.
If you're looking for some great entertainment to thaw the winter chill, you definitely want to hear this next story. Here's ACMi's production intern, Renee Lucas, with your arts and entertainment calendar for the upcoming weeks.
Celebrate Black History this month at the Regent Theater on February 18th at 7:30 p.m. They will screen The Flying Ace, an award-winning silent film from 1926. The story centers around a World War I fighter pilot that returns to his job as a railroad detective and must recover $25,000 of missing payroll and the gang of thieves responsible for it. The filmmaker, Richard Norman, is celebrated during Black History Month for making several silent films that feature Black actors and actresses in a positive light. The Banff Center Mountain Film and Book Festival of Alberta comes to Arlington as part of its 2022 World Tour. Banff is one of the world's most prestigious mountain festivals. The festival will stop in around 550 communities and 40 countries worldwide. Visit the Regent Theater on Monday the 21st through Friday the 25th to experience Banff's amazing achievements in outdoor storytelling and filmmaking. The wide variety of award-winning films makes Banff's 2022 World Tour a must-see for film fans in and around the Arlington area. For more information or to purchase tickets for either of these events, visit artsarlington.org. The Fox Library is hosting a Mother Goose Storytime for all ages. There will be rhymes, songs, stories, and loads of fun. Masks are required for all participants 2 years of age and up, and tickets will be available for free at the Fox front desk a half hour before the program is set to start. Visit the Robbins Library website for more information at robbinslibrary.org. Fans of queer cinema are invited to join an online social event hosted on Zoom. This event will feature iconic queer movie clips, trivia questions, and the opportunity to hang out with an intergenerational group of movie fans. Newcomers are welcome to take part in this event. For the Zoom link, email jstarkey@minilib.net. And for the full calendar of the Robbins Library events, visit robbinslibrary.org. For ACMi News, this is Renee Lucas.
And now it's time to throw it over to Studio B at Arlington High School for this week's Ponderscope.
Hello everyone, I'm Anna Severa and welcome back to Ponderscope, the final production in ACMi Studio B before our relocation. If you haven't already, be sure to give consent to participate in AHS at-home COVID testing program if you're interested. Students and staff who opt in will receive an iHealth antigen testing kit every 2 weeks. The school strongly recommends getting tested on Monday, February 28th before returning to school. Remember that school starts at 11:30 a.m. on Monday after February break and that all STEAM classes will be located in the new building. Speaking of the new building, the AHS newspaper has recently released an exclusive article highlighting some important aspects of the new building. It includes sneak peeks of natural light exposure, new classrooms, a discourse lab, and more. Be sure to check out ahsponderpage.wordpress.com to see it. The yearbook club needs candid photos to fill up extra pages in this year's yearbook. They can be from schools, sports, clubs, plays, concerts, or hang out with friends outside of school. They must be sent to ahsyearbook@spyponders.com by March 4th to be included. Be sure to include your class in the subject line. Lastly, Phase 1 of the new building for Arlington High School will be open after February break. Students have already seen major changes throughout the school as teachers pack up and prepare for the move. This is a reminder to check your email and Google Classroom, as many teachers shall be changing rooms as a result of moving into the new building. That's all for this week's Ponderscope. I hope you have a wonderful February break, and we'll see you in the new building. I'm Anna Severa.
And now let's turn it over to the students of Arlington High School once again for this week's sports update with Xander Lee.
Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new edition of the ACMi Sports Update. Let's dive right into another wild week of Arlington High School sports. On Tuesday, February 8th, the girls' varsity basketball team was not what you could call warmly received by Reading Memorial. They struggled to get anything going both offensively and defensively, while Reading Memorial poured on the buckets and they fell by a final score of 27-67. Playing at Waltham on February 6th, the boys' basketball team found themselves on the brink of their first road win of the year. It was an extreme test of their will to win, and the game came down to the final point, but the Spy Ponders finally pulled off a road win in a 62-61 victory. They then went to Reading Memorial to play another intensely competitive away game, but couldn't emerge victorious in this one, losing 53-56. Facing off at Lexington on February 2nd, the girls' hockey team pulled out a victory in a defensive struggle. The final score in that one was 2-0. 3 days later, they played Winchester at home in the Ed Burns Arena, and the Spy Ponders continued to rise in the ranks with another dominating shutout victory. In addition to keeping Winchester off the board, they scored 3 times and were holding a 3-0 lead when there were triple zeros on the clock. They continued to soar in the homestand and dominated Belmont, winning by a final score of 4-1. That kept their winning streak alive, and it has now reached double digits with the Spy Ponders having won 11 straight games. The girls' hockey team is a very dangerous opponent and could be primed for a state championship run if they stay on their current pace. Playing at home against Bridgewater Raynham, the boys' hockey team had a nice bounce-back win following a tough loss against Marshfield. They only scored once in the first period and exited tied at 1 goal apiece, but poured on the goals from there. They took a 3-1 lead into the third and final period and never looked back, scoring 3 more times to finish off the blowout 6-1 victory. That set the stage for another home game, a key matchup against a rival Belmont team. However, the Spy Ponders were shocked with a 2-6 loss, their worst blowout loss of the year. It was not what Arlington was hoping for as we begin to reach the end of the season, but they can't dwell on it too long because they are still in a very good position and have a few more key games coming up. In the pit at Arlington High School, the boys' wrestling team walked away with a sharp home victory. Their final match of the season came against Woburn and they won 38-24. Congratulations to the Arlington boys swimming team on coming in second place in the Middlesex League Championship swim meet. The game is now available on the ACMi Sports YouTube channel as a past live stream, visible for all viewers. Thanks for watching this episode of the Sports Update, and we will see you here again next time. I'm Xander Lee.
Thanks, Xander. That'll do it for this week's edition of ACMi News. Thanks for joining us. I'm Drew Weisberg.
And I'm Katie Chang. Have a great evening, everyone, and good night.